Okay, back to the snap. Thanks again for joining us today. And make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't yet. Patrick, the first thing I want to touch on, remarkable scenes. We talked about the European Super League of Football, remarkable scenes outside the Chelsea ground. And now we've seen it all fall apart, the European Super League.
Yeah, I think it was Petr Cech, wasn't it, who came out and tipped the wink to the fans, give us time. And about half an hour later, Chelsea were on the way out, and then Man City were. And then you've seen the collapse of the other four English teams, and you've seen the owner of Liverpool put out a Nick Clegg style "I'm so sorry" video. We'll see if that has the same reputational effect that Clegg's did back in the day. But yeah, the whole thing's terminated. The question is politically who gets the credit. I do note that an hour or so before the collapse, Boris Johnson was talking in a press conference about a legislative route to stopping the thing going ahead. So he's probably entitled to claim a share of the credit.
I mean, what struck me about it is that you had, huge money involved, huge interest with these owners of these football clubs. And I mean, this is beyond a PR disaster. I mean, they put out some crappy little statement. No one really came out to defend it. I find the whole thing, frankly, quite bizarre, and they've caved in a matter of days. So anyway, but one of the things we do like to do on this show, of course, is be very positive where possible. And Patrick, this story in the Telegraph, Brexit fails to deter investment in UK with 5.1 billion funneled into startups. What a surprise. Those years of sort of Remainer scaremongering, yet again disproven by the Brexit reality.
Yeah, and I think the surge in inward investment has come since the Brexit deal, through the beginning of this year, and yet another piece of economic information to expose Project Fear. The quite well-respected economic commentator Wolfgang Munchau has also got a piece on Spectator Coffee House, and he opposed Brexit, and he sort of says, hands up, the forecasts were wrong. He says that a lot of the big economists at the big institutions, such as the Bank of England or the Treasury, were dancing to the tune of a Remainer government. Other people in the economic forecasting world were sort of buckling to their own political prejudices, being largely anti-Brexit. And also the whole of economics didn't see the upsides of Brexit, the possibilities, particularly in terms of trade in the knowledge economy from setting your own rules. So every week, almost every day, there's new bits of information on the economic front, which tells us that Britain is sailing on, and we have our economic destiny in our own hands.
But here's the thing that gets me, Patrick, let me know if you think I'm right or wrong on this, is that when I look back at all those people who are sort of self-professed experts, and virtually to a man and woman, they got it completely and utterly wrong. And yet very few of them seem to be held accountable. They all seem to keep their jobs, and they all seem to be the people that moving forward will make the same bunch of predictions. And, I'm just one of those people, I look at that now, and frankly, when they make predictions in the future, I will price it in that they're talking the country down, that they're being pessimistic. And I think that lack of accountability actually is one of those things increasingly that Brits, it's sort of become white noise to them. They just sort of tune out now in the future when you hear doom mongering forecasts, because they've been proven to be effectively a busted industry.
Yeah, well, there was certainly a lot of groupthink going on, and part of the groupthink was he who pays the piper calls the tune, and that was the government largely. And then there was the groupthink of personal political prejudices. But I think, as someone who did my degree in economics and was economic spokesman for UKIP for a good while, I have to say that economic forecasting is not one of the world's most highly developed sciences. It's like long range weather forecasting, basically. No one can really see beyond the end of the month. And I would also liken it to the sort of level that medicine was at in the era of King George, where they would just slap on leeches and it was largely superstition. So I don't think we should pay too much attention to the forecasts of particular economists in terms of things like Brexit, which will play out over the very long term.
Now, one of the things we're looking at, of course, on the show is the huge set of elections heading into May. An interesting new poll out for London that shows Sadiq Khan still with a lead, but down basically half in the first round, because he's now on 41% versus Sean Bailey on 28%. I believe in a poll back in March, Sadiq Khan had a much large lead, around double in size. And there's also a YouTuber, young YouTuber, Nico Omilana, in fifth place on 5%, which is pretty remarkable if a YouTuber was able to get more votes than the Liberal Democrat and Green Party candidate, Patrick.
Well, yeah, it looks like Nico is hoovering up the 18 to 24-year-olds. How many of them will actually turn out to vote on the day, of course, is another question entirely. But Sadiq Khan is still, let's be clear, on course to win very comfortably. But it's looking more and more likely now that it will go to a second round. And also that his vote has softened. He's lost perhaps 10 points. Sean Bailey, the Tory, hasn't particularly had a surge or anything like that. But I think it's just a sign of the nationwide deterioration in the Labour political position. And we know with Khan that he has stratospheric ratings among ethnic minority voters, among the sort of urban liberal left element, which is very large in London, and also among, don't forget, EU nationals in London who are entitled to vote in this set of elections and constitute about 12% of the electorate. So given he's doing so well with those groups, it must mean that Sadiq Khan has really fallen back quite a lot among groups such as the white working class or the sort of outer zone suburban lower middle class in London, and that is the sort of same group of people that Labour is struggling with all across the country. So Sadiq Khan will still get in, but it does not augur well for Keir Starmer and Labour more generally on May the 6th.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the numbers for Keir Starmer, Patrick, and they show now Boris Johnson still has a 19-point personal lead over Starmer. And only around 57-58% of Labour 2019 voters, when asked, back Starmer as the best choice for PM, which is a pretty damning indictment. About 20% say Boris Johnson, and about 20% of Labour, further than 20% of Labour voters say they don't know. But I know we're going to have people watching this who are despairing at a potential Sadiq Khan victory in London. But just look at what's going on in Germany, Patrick. The Germans are set to go to the polls in September. And could Angela Merkel be replaced by a chancellor from the Green Party?
Well, it's looking possible. The Greens are now on 28% in Germany, 8 points clear of Merkel's political operation. And they've had, I think it's the 24th consecutive poll that the Greens have chalked up at least 20% support. Now, I think the Greens in the UK have got a massive political opportunity because, you know, the Lib Dems have effectively disappeared. Labour is on its uppers. Its coalition is falling apart. Its leader is bombing. It doesn't project idealism or any sense that it's on the verge of winning an election anytime soon either. And yet we've got Greta Thunberg every week being glorified on the BBC, this COP26 conference happening in Glasgow in the autumn, the sort of mainstream broadcast media mania around all of that, David Attenborough popping up as a national treasure. It's all set fair for the Green Party. And to be fair, the last YouGov poll in this country had them on 8% level with the Lib Dems. And for them, that's at the top of their range. But they should look across to Germany and really up their game and lift their horizons. And the thing that they most need to do is to drop some of the balmy, woke, ultra-militant identity politics, particularly around stuff such as trans issues. You know, what that's got to do with saving the planet, I don't know, but it's clearly putting voters off who are looking for a protest vote on the left, who are keen on environmentalism right now. So I think they've got huge upside potential, but they've got to get their activists in order.
I mean, it's interesting to note where politics within the EU is, because, of course, you look at Angela Merkel in Germany, you look at Emmanuel Macron in France, made some appalling comments during this pandemic, which has led to huge skepticism of vaccines in both France and Germany. And I just think it speaks for itself, really, when you've got Emmanuel Macron pretty much neck and neck with Marine Le Pen in France, And as Merkel ends her tenure as Chancellor, it looks like the Green Party, I mean, her party are an absolute mess. They've been battered in recent regional elections. And of course, now the Green Party is the opposition there. I think it shows you actually the legacy that you've seen through Macron and Merkel in the EU has been a bit of a failure. The public in Europe turning against it and looking to other alternatives now.
It certainly does. The centrist establishment of the European elite is in massive trouble. You know, they try to sort of hermetically seal Brexit off and carry on the same path, but we're seeing successive waves really of radicalism among European populations, whether it be from the populist right or potentially the populist left, using climate change worries and environmentalism as perhaps their number one card at the moment. But you know, it's looking very, very slippery and dodgy for the European political elite, and I think lots of us in the UK will look across and think they deserve what's coming.
Absolutely. And guys, look, if you enjoyed the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and the bell so you don't miss the next one. Do keep your feedback coming through in the comments. Good to hear from you, Patrick. We'll be back soon.
Yeah, see you soon.